Over 1 billion people feel a profound, personal connection to one man. Yet, if you search the historical record for a portrait, a sketch, or a physical depiction of him, you will find nothing. He is visually absent from history. Look at almost any major civilization. When someone shapes the course of human events, societies naturally immortalize them. They carve their likeness into marble, cast them in bronze, and paint them into historical scenes. For Muslims, Prophet Muhammad is the final messenger of God. His actions, his words, and his quietest moments serve as the primary blueprint for every aspect of daily life. There is a firm line drawn in Islamic theology. The reverence for him is absolute, but Muslims do not worship him. He is understood to be entirely human. The empty frame is a deliberate boundary. Restricting the physical portrait prevents respect from shifting into the realm of divine worship. Looking at this early photograph of the Kaaba in Mecca grounds us in Islam's geographical origins. In 7th century Arabia, this ancient structure was surrounded by hundreds of tribal statues and deities. Society was heavily polytheistic, relying on physical objects for spiritual connection. Islam emerged with a message of Tawheed, the strict belief that the Creator alone is worthy of worship, without partners and without physical form. Early Islamic scholars observed a recurring pattern in older traditions. Communities would create images of righteous figures out of love, but over generations, that respect would shift. The pictures themselves eventually became the objects of devotion. Over time, this visual restriction functioned as a strategic precaution, separating the human messenger from the divine creator in the eyes of his followers. It ensured the theological core of the faith remained distinct from the physical imagery of the era. Early Muslims avoided painting the prophet because they believed any single artist's interpretation would be limited, reducing a complex historical legacy to one flawed human imagination. Islamic scholars meticulously constructed a civilization centered on language rather than imagery. These library shelves hold an exact continuous record. The scholars documented every action, mannerism, and habit through thousands of verified oral traditions and written accounts. The descriptions are highly specific. His companions recorded the deep black color of his eyes, his height, and the way his dark hair rested. They also captured the warmth of his presence. They described how his smile illuminated a room and noted the rose-like fragrance of his sweat, which companions would collect as perfume. Looking at the bold Kufic script on this ancient parchment, you can see how heavily they prioritized language. By passing down exact descriptions rather than a fixed drawing, every generation constructs a personal connection in their own mind. Some non-mainstream traditions in the Persian and Ottoman empires did experiment with miniature art, often depicting him with his face veiled by light. However, the vast Sunni majority rejected this practice. The choice to avoid the paintbrush resulted in a tradition of linguistic and oral devotion that has preserved his memory for 14 centuries. Western art often centers on the human figure. Because Islamic artists avoided drawing the body, they channeled their creative focus toward the abstract. We see the result in spaces like this tile work. Artists developed complex geometric designs. These repeating shapes reflect the infinite nature of God. Observe the scale of this interior. Instead of carving statues, architects used the interplay of light, massive domes, and expansive hanging chandeliers to create awe. This antique manuscript shows how Arabic itself became a high art form. Writing the name Muhammad beautifully became more spiritually significant than painting his face. This distinct, figureless aesthetic spread across major global empires, from the domes of Istanbul to the courtyard of the Jama Masjid here in Delhi. The absence of physical icons in these spaces reflects a spiritual philosophy designed to point the mind toward the abstract rather than the physical form. In modern secular societies, mocking public figures through satire is a standard part of cultural fabric. For Muslims, the Prophet holds a status of absolute sacredness. When offensive cartoons are published, the reaction from the Muslim world is rarely about political critique. It registers as an emotional pain, similar to witnessing a public attack on a beloved family member. Islamic law establishes firm boundaries regarding this offense. Using violence to harm innocent people in response to a drawing is forbidden. Historically, the Prophet himself faced public mockery and physical insults during his lifetime. The historical record shows that he consistently responded to personal attacks with patience and mercy, often praying for those who persecuted him. Bridging the current cultural divide requires recognizing the protective love driving the Muslim reaction. while ensuring that the reaction itself aligns with the dignified restraint found in his own historical legacy. The result of this tradition is a massive scale of daily remembrance. His name is invoked in prayers and blessings billions of times globally every day. Civilizations express reverence through different mechanisms. While some use canvas and stone to remember their leaders, Islamic civilization uses language, architecture, and daily action. Ultimately, Muslims ask the world to evaluate the Prophet based on his message of justice, compassion, and humility. They prefer his character to be the focal point, rather than his physical appearance. By leaving the canvas blank, Islamic civilization positioned the Prophet's legacy as something beyond physical artifacts, rooted instead in the continuity of his message.